but I wouldn't tell my the owner and my leader that I don't want to travel because of this, because they would just throw it back in your face like time now for time later and blah 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 blah. And so I couldn't let either one know
Mhm.
completely. Like I couldn't let the leaders know how upset I was about traveling because they would be like, if you don't want to travel, then you don't really want this opportunity or you don't want this job. And really, at this point, like I wasn't super like stoked on the opportunity anymore. I just needed the paycheck. It was like until I could find something else. And but there was no time to look for anything else ever.
So, Stephanie, you worked for a Smart Circle company for about a year in North Carolina, and this was a few years ago. It's been almost 4 years since you left. So, I'm curious, why are you telling your story now? Is it still something that resonates with you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think that I'm telling my story because as many people as that we can keep from joining these companies and we can make aware that they're out there, the better. Because I had no idea that what I was joining was what it was. And by the time I figured it out, I was completely brainwashed.
Yeah, like a year is a long time to be in Smart Circle, and based on your message you sent to us, you were pretty successful. You said that you went to Dallas, so you were
Hmm.
there for the leadership conference. You went to Vegas. You went on solo road trips. So you were obviously trusted with helping other markets and doing sales and things like that. So can you take us through your experience? Like, what were you selling? What were some of the things you remember from the field and that whole experience of succeeding essentially for the year that you were there?
Um, I I sold everything from like I did all the hair stuff, the Style House, the Jose Bear. I did all three of the skincare lines that they offer. My favorite was actually the Ibiz, the car wax,
Yeah.
which doesn't sound like something that a girl would be their favorite one, but I was the most successful at that one.
Yeah.
I hit like the top sales in the nation once or twice, and
Mhm.
that was really cool. And then the um the guy that trained me on Ibis is actually, I don't know if he still is, but he went on to be the national trainer where he would go around and train all the offices for it. But yeah, and then I also did the Soma Care, Biomega. I think I did all of them, but like the food one. The ones that I sold, I liked them.
Yeah.
I used the skincare. I mean, maybe like I kind of felt that maybe all the stuff that was coming up wasn't all dead skin because that just doesn't make sense. Like you can do it over and over and over again on the same spot and still get more.
Yeah.
But after you do it, your skin does feel clean and better. And I don't know. But
Okay.
the hair stuff, I went into the hair campaigns not knowing how to curl my hair, not knowing how to braid my hair, anything. And so I couldn't tell you if this is a really good hot tool or not. I just know that it did what it said it did. I mean, I thought that the Soma Care stuff was pretty cool. Like you can boil them, reuse them. Yeah, they would break every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know that they would last as long as they claimed they last, but and then you would say something to like the resource people like, oh well, if these have such a good guarantee, why are they breaking on us all the time? And they'd be like, oh well, they're not meant to be used over and over and over again all the time, you know?
But they're reusable. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah, when they break, they're a mess and they stink like vinegar. It's awful. They're horrible.
Hmm.
All right, anyway, so getting back to the previous question. So you sold all these products. So like now, 4 years later, what do you remember from being in the field? Like, what were some of the major challenges, some of your successes that you experienced when you were there? So first, were you in Sam's Club and Costco's, or were you in other stores also?
I only did Sam's Club,
Okay. Okay.
just Sam's Club. We did Costco in our office, but it was kind of something that I think the owner only trusted with her top girl who like she
Yeah.
was like pushing for assistant management and maybe like this one other girl that I went to Dallas with, but I don't remember many other people getting the opportunity to go into Costco. Like,
Yeah.
but because I know that they were a lot stricter on
Okay.
compliance. Um, but yeah, I only ever did Sam's Club. And I remember when I first started, they like completely love bombed me. They and I was out of work, so I lost a job that I had had for 9 years. And I was out of work for like a month and I was completely desperate, applying everywhere, not really finding anything. And then I got called in and I would have taken a job at McDonald's at this point. Because I was completely broke, needed money really bad. And I got called in to do my interviews. I did the first round interview and I was like super excited because they just make it sound so great and like it's a real job. Like I called it like a big girl job because that's what I thought it was, which it's not. But and then the second round interview where I went in with my original leader, um, I was like, wow, I really don't want to be this person in Sam's Club bugging people to buy hot irons. But then she went over like the compensation plan and like where this is how much you can make and like in a year you make this much, which I was there a year, it didn't happen. Um, but and I was like, okay, I can do this for that much money. That's fine. And so then went into the third round interview and I had also interviewed somewhere else and I can't remember where, but um and I had either like a second round interview with them set up or it was the initial interview. I can't remember. It's been so long. But they called me after I did the third round interview and they were like, you need to decide by this time
Yeah.
or like it's off the table. And I was like, okay. And so I canceled the other interview and I took it, which
Yeah.
I shouldn't have done.
Right.
But I did. And then when I went in for my first day, um, they taught me all the systems and stuff. And my memory is really, really good. Um, like scary good. I remember stuff that I should not remember. And I went home that night and I learned everything because they basically told me if you want to make money, you have to teach these back to us. The sooner you do that, the sooner you make money. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. And I taught them back perfectly, didn't miss a single word because they told me I couldn't, like one word out of place, and oh no, but no words are out of place. I taught it and they put me in the field on my second day. And
Wow.
they told me that I was the first person in the history of the company to qualify to go into the field on the second day. I don't know if that's true or not, but it made me feel great.
Sounds good. Yeah, for sure.
And so then I worked really hard. And I remember on that first day, the girl that I was in the field with had told me, like, I'm not allowed to make a sale on my first day.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the first people that I talked to, like, because she had also given me the pitch the night before, like, just in case I qualified to go in the field. And so I had that memorized too. Like, I had all the steps and the pitch memorized for my second day. And I was like pitching people, and it was like the second or third person that I talked to ended up getting like the biggest skincare bundle. And he was like, yeah, I want it. And I like looked up at her because she had told me if I sold anything, I was going to get sent home. And I was like, no, like you're not supposed to buy this. Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna get in trouble if you buy this. And she was like, oh, no, 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 because I was really like hesitant.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh no, it's okay. Like, ha ha ha. And like, she like played it off and sold it to the guy or whatever. And she's like, oh, I was just kidding. Like, but yeah, I don't sell anything else. Kind of like, I think trying to take the pressure off of me where like I
Yeah.
wouldn't feel bad if I didn't sell anything. But really, like when it came down to it and I was about to sell something, I was like, oh no, like this guy's about to buy this and I'm going to get in trouble.
That's so
But
weird.
it is. But like the way that they, and like whenever I was a leader later and she trained me, she was like, yeah, you can tell them they're not allowed to do it so that if they don't make any sales, they don't feel discouraged. They'll feel like they did what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
And then I remembered that on my first day, you know. But yeah, and so I started off kind of strong and then I quickly got promoted, I think just in like a couple weeks to campaign manager.
Hmm.
And then I kind of like hit a wall where I think it was a while before I could really start building my team. Um, just because my sales weren't consistent.
Yeah.
And then I eventually was able to like qualify for interviews and sucked quite a few other people into the company, and I feel bad for each and every one of them. There's this one girl in particular, and I built like a really good, like genuine relationship with her. She was young.
Yeah.
And like when I joined the business, what was this, 2016? So I was like 25. So I was kind of like already older than quite a few of the people we were bringing in.
Yeah.
But she was young and we were working her so hard, and she lost her job because she fell asleep in one of the couches at Sam's Club and the manager took a picture of her
Oh my gosh.
because she was just so overworked.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember like my owner calling me into the office and like showing me the picture, and like it was kind of like she was like almost like laughing about it, but then she was really upset about it because of like compliance, and she was like, we're
Yeah.
gonna have to get rid of her. And I was like, dang, like that was not fun because I really liked her. Like she would like go to like concerts with me, and like I still have it. She drew me this thing of this guy playing a guitar, like really quick. We were at a concert and she like sketched it out while we were watching and gave it to me, and I still have it. Like,
Mhm.
she was such a cool girl, and I feel really bad about it.
Yeah. You're not the only person who's told me that. Um, so you had, like you said in your message, you went to Dallas. So you were a
Hmm.
part of a leaders conference, which I mean is really just another way to, propagandize and brainwash people. What do you remember about your trip to Dallas?
Um, it was, I think Dallas came before Vegas. Um, I think it was like the first time I had been on a plane since I was like 2 years old. Um, and we got there, but like we didn't leave the little like hotel bubble the whole time we were there, I don't
Yeah.
think. Um, and it was a lot of just praising like Larissa and Mike and the all the like successful people, and the whole thing was just set up like get these people to give them like 5 minutes of their time and have a one-on-one with you and talk to them and talk to them about the opportunity and like learn what you can from them. And really, like, what are you going to learn from sitting down with somebody for 5 minutes? They would never give you that good of advice. They never were like, this is exactly what you need to do. Like, it was never like that. It was just like, positive mindset, toxic positivity, and just all of this stuff that like wasn't a step by step way to implement anything because they would always say how easy everything was,
Yeah.
right? But it really wasn't.
I remember having one-on-ones with both of them, Mike and Larissa, the national consultants. I know Mike is not involved in the business anymore, but I remember he was just kind of like a very arrogant person. You know, he gave off this air that he was very, very rich, and I know for that he was, you know, very, very rich and had a beautiful house and everything. And Rachel talked about him in her interview a couple years ago. And then Larissa, she always flaunts her Coco Chanel earrings and all this sort of stuff, which she might only have the one pair. I don't know, because I feel like that's the same common denominator from everyone who's met Larissa. She always has the same earrings on and the same um, little clutch or purse that she carries and whatever. And it's just this entire, and you know, the names are going to change. You know, I've heard names of other national consultants too. You can go through all of these videos. They're going to be different, whether it's Smart Circle or Sidcore or Credico or whoever. They're different names, but they're the same people. They're arrogant. They're not sympathetic at all. They might, I don't even think they're really human apart from their physiology. You know, they have no soul. You know, they live for this scam that they bought into, and you know, they're heaping you know, all this advice on you, which supposedly worked for them to get to where they are, but you don't know if they're even telling the truth. They might come from money, their families might be wealthy, you know, they might have all these other interests, they might own real estate. You know, just because they're rich doesn't mean they got rich from selling crap in a Sam's Club. Very few, if any, people have ever done that. So yeah, it's a very cult-like atmosphere because these dear leaders, it's kind of like a personality cult in a way. They're put on this pedestal, and all you want to do is touch their clothing and talk to them for 5 minutes, and that's the elixir that will give you happiness and success. It's a very very sad environment, especially since it's the vast majority is very impressionable young people that don't have work experience, and they're shoved into this and they're thinking, oh, well, this must be what a job is. No, it's not. That's not at all what a job is. So what was Vegas then? Was that another leadership conference?
Vegas was the R&R.
The R&R. Okay, so that's where you had all the awards and even more love bombing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you tell us about Vegas? What do you remember from that?
Vegas was cool. I'd never been. Um, we we got there. See, that was a little bit different. That one was like framed as like a little bit more fun because like Dallas was
Yeah.
get as many one-on-ones with these people as you can. And then it was just like you got picked to do like a specific product training where you got to meet
Yeah.
the like person who was in charge of it.
Yep.
And so that one was framed as training, training, training. And the R&R, while there was like quite a bit of like one-on-ones and in Vegas they had these like meetings. Like as soon as we got there, there was like this giant mingling thing happening. So we would put our bags away and then instantly we went down to like the hotel lobby and everybody was just mingling and like waiting for their chance to take a picture with so and so high up person
Yeah.
and just like talking. So there's a lot of that. And then it was a little bit different though, because yeah, it was a lot of like rewards
Hmm.
and um just kind of like them praising people. And then they would have like these like fancy dinners where you like the owner would tell me like my goal was to sit at the same table with like so and so. So like get there early and grab a seat at the table with like this person that you should network with. Um and it's like even like dinner time wasn't even a time to just like relax. It was the time to just network. And then there was like the reward ceremonies, but then in Vegas at least there was a lot more time like set aside for to do like fun things. Like we went to a magic show, which was cool. And then I think that the other leader that I went with and the owner went to I think they went to a concert, but I was like I didn't go with them. Because we got like $300 to be able to go out there and that we could like spend it any way we wanted, and I didn't want to spend like half of it on a concert ticket.
Right.
And they kind of like tried to make me feel bad about it a little bit because of like they wanted to do team building and blah blah blah, but I was like, oh well, we did this magic show and we went to the high roller at the link. It was like this big like Ferris wheel thing, but you were in like a bubble and there was like a bar in the bubble.
Cool.
And it like went around. And I don't drink. But the people I went with were it was kind of like it like took like 10-15 minutes to go all the way around, and it was like all you can drink for whatever. So I ended up paying like a ridiculous amount of money for all you can drink to just go around in this thing when I don't even drink.
Yeah.
It was really weird. But there's like a lot of like cool experiences on that trip. So if anything, that was cool. We stayed at the Bellagio. That's what it's called, right? The big one.
Yeah,
the fountain. And that was nice. Nicest hotel I've ever stayed in.
Everything that you mentioned, it's more techniques to get you to buy in to what they're selling you, because when you're around all these very well-dressed people, that they could be your age or they could be the higher ups, and there's this impression of money. I mean, you go to the Bellagio, beautiful place. Vegas itself, there's so much, like you said, cool stuff to see, and you get this impression of, well, if they can send me here for this basically all expenses paid trip, and I can have all this fun and they can pay me to have fun, and I'm surrounded by all these other people, there must be opportunity here because they're making money. At least that's the impression. So who wouldn't want to be a part of that, right? Once a year, get a basically a free trip to someplace. If it's not Vegas, it's Cancun or somewhere in the Bahamas. Why not? So yeah, and all the networking, whether it's Dallas or Vegas or wherever they send you to, all the networking is also meant to do that, because it's the success stories. I started selling stuff and now I own 3 offices and whatever. Yeah, but they're only making $45,000 a year. That's what they don't tell you, is they don't make anything.
Yeah, and I think it's also a way to keep you in longer. Like,
yeah, for sure.
If you're thinking about quitting, but you know that in 3 weeks they're going to announce who gets to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
You might stick it out to see if you get to go to Vegas. And then if you do, then you stay for Vegas, and then they have another chance to beat the opportunity into your head, and maybe you stay more. Like, I feel like I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I was thinking about quitting, and then I went to this convention thing, and then I stuck it out a little bit longer.
Yeah. You were you're based in North Carolina. You were there during a hurricane, according to your message. But you were sent there, it sounds like. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, that was kind of where I first got the idea of I don't mean anything to these people, like, at all. So I was selling rainfall in Lumberton, North Carolina. So I got sent down there on a solo road trip for 2 weeks, which they would send me on these solo road trips all the time. All the time. I would have to go do solo road trips, and I hated it. But I got sent down there, and Hurricane Matthew was like scheduled to hit. And I was kind of like, okay, this hurricane's gonna hit. what's going to happen. I don't think anybody really knew it was going to be as bad as it was, but it got really bad. So I went to bed the night before in the hotel that it was going to hit, and I woke up and there was no power. And so I looked out the window because all I could hear were sirens, like sirens everywhere. And like I was laying there and I heard the siren, and it was like the same fire truck, and it went this way, and then I heard the sirens come back another way and then another way. And I looked out the window and I'm like watching this fire truck turn around and do circles, and I couldn't figure out why. The reason why was because all the roads were flooded and they were trying to get to help somebody and they couldn't. There wasn't, I don't know how much damage from Matthew that there was from like wind or anything like that. I'm sure some. Mostly it was from flooding. Everything was flooded. Lumberton, North Carolina, I think 90% of it is under flood level. And so when Matthew came and it was really slow, the hurricane was really slow, and so it hung out over Lumberton for long enough to completely flood it. I'm still stranded in my hotel. I don't know how bad it is. I just know that all this is going on. There's no power. There's no cell signal. I think I was able to get enough signal to text the owner and let her know that, like, hey, my hotel doesn't have power. Yeah, I remember opening a can of Chef Boyardee and eating it cold because there was no power.
Mm-hmm.
There was no food. Everywhere was closed. Waffle House at first was selling eggs only because that was the only thing that they could cook on their grill. But you had to have cash, and I didn't have cash. And I went down to the in the lobby of the hotel that I stayed at, they would have like these like breakfasts and stuff. And I went down there and they were already out of all their food. And there was no food. And so I'm stranded here with no food, nowhere's open. There's no power for anybody. The cell service is super spotty. And like what I was doing was I was running my car to charge my phone to like try and like figure out how I'm gonna get out of here because the gas stations didn't have power, so they couldn't pump gas. And my gas tank, it was I had less than half of a tank, and I'm a few hours away from home. Mm-hmm. And so after being stranded here, the owner eventually was like, look, like, you know, we got to get you out of there. Leave the display. I was like, of course, leave the display. Like, that's not what I'm worried about. I eventually had to go back and pick it up. But she was like, don't worry about going to Sam's Club. Just leave the display. Drive up this direction. And wherever your car runs out of gas is like where I'll meet you to pick you up. She's like, you can just leave your car there and I'll come get you the rest of the way. And we can go get your car whenever the gas stations can pump gas again. I had heard like little rumblings of like how bad it was, all the people that were looking for food. But when I started driving, I like made a right turn, and the road, it like went down, and it looked like, I don't know if you've ever been like boating before, but you know where you put your boat in the water and like the cement part of the boat ramp just goes into the water. That's what the road looked like. And right in the middle of that, there was a tractor trailer truck, and you could see about this much of the top of like the trailer. The whole truck was under, and like that was on the news. And it was like every turn that I made, the road was flooded, and I finally and there was no GPS. My like phone couldn't connect to the GPS, and I'm out here and I don't know where I am, and I'm trying to get home, but I can't go the way that I know.
Yeah.
And so I kept like rolling down my window and talking to these, like, all these people were super Southern too, out in this town. And just the directions they would give me, I would have to like listen really hard just because they were so southern. I couldn't understand them. And they I'd like roll down my window and yell out and be like, "Hey, how do I get to like this highway?" And they'd be like, "Turn right on this road and like then like go about quarter of a mile up and like turn right on this road." So I followed quite a few of those many people's directions and I finally like found my way. Um, but when I like got on the highway, the like on ramp was completely covered in water. I probably had to turn around 40 times because the roads were closed, the highways, the cops wouldn't let you go that way and you had to get off. And I would be getting off in these areas and I wouldn't know where I was. Um, and the GPS wasn't working. So it was super scary. But I'd say like for the first, it's a couple hours away from where I live.
Yeah.
And I'd say for the first hour and a half of that like distance, every single gas station, even in like the inland, was still closed. So I eventually got out and my car had like 2 miles left. Like it wasn't gonna make it any farther. And I stopped at this gas station. I was like, all right, this is where I'm leaving my car. But luckily they had just gotten their power back. And so I didn't need to meet the owner and take her car. I didn't have to leave my car. Um, and then a week later, I had to go back down to get the display. And that town was still without power. They were only allowing 40 people in the Sam's Club at a time. The fire department was there with a clicker
Mm-hmm.
because it was a fire hazard because there was no running water to the town and the sprinkler system didn't work in the Sam's Club. But they wanted the Sam's Club to be open so that people could get food.
Yeah.
And so I like went to get the display and it was like really humbling and like eye-opening because so many people asked me where they were serving hot food today. Do you know where they're serving hot food today? And I'm like, I don't know. And I overheard this like mom and her kid at the hotel when I went back. It was like something out of a zombie movie. All the mattresses were yanked out of the rooms. They had, I was like, hey, because I left some of my stuff there. And I like went out to the desk and I was like, hey, I have this. And she was like, oh, follow me. This is the stuff that like got left. And like, it was just all these like random people's like belongings that I like had to like go through. It was like really, it was weird. And there was like no lights in there either, which kind of added to the zombie movie effect of like going back in this like rundown hotel where everything's ripped up now and there's so much flood damage and just like looking for my belongings. I think I found my mom's lunchbox and like something else random, but like what I went down there for was gone. Somebody else took it.
Mm-hmm.
But then so I got the display and brought it back. But that's all she was worried about was going to get the display back.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, because if you don't have that display, she's got to pay for another one.
yep.
So leading up to the hurricane, like I know that if you're sent on a 2-week road show, I mean you obviously don't know the weather 2 weeks out, but 2 days, 3 days going into it, did your owner express like any type of concern that, oh, we might have to get you out of there or anything like that?
I don't remember specifically, but I feel like I wanted to go home and I feel like I asked her, I was like, hey, this hurricane's coming, and she's like, oh, it doesn't look like it's supposed to be that bad. It like dropped down to a category, whatever. But that wasn't the problem, it was the flooding.
Yeah. So how did that, well, did the hurricane experience kind of change your mentality going forward? Because I think you would have only been in for about 4 or 5 months more after that. Like how are you different going forward after experiencing that and seeing everything that you did?
I mean, seeing all that and coming back to it, like It was pretty crazy, and I feel like it made me not want to travel as much anymore in the company.
Mhm.
But my last few months there, it was back to back travel, back to back solo trips. Like they would as soon as you like they could sense that you were slipping or like your mentality was slipping or you were having thoughts, they were like, let's send them on a road trip. Let's like get into their head and take up all of their time and completely control their
Yeah.
surroundings type thing, separate them. Like it got to a point near the end where I wanted to see the people that I was close with so bad that I would be in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and driving 3.5 hours at night after work to come back to Raleigh, even though the owner like paid for a hotel. Like
Mhm.
a couple times a week, I would drive all the way back to Raleigh to see the people that I was close with and wake up at like 4 a.m. and drive to the back to the hotel.
Wow.
And that was just how much I missed my people because they would send me on these back-to-back road trips where I'd be home for one day and I'd have to spend it washing their stupid displays and like packing up the car and getting ready for the next trip.
Yeah.
Like it was awful.
Yeah, and you said in your message to us that you lied to your friends and family about how happy you were. I could imagine that that would take a toll. I mean, I'm sure people have done it, but you're the first person who's told me that you did something like that. You would drive through the night just to be close to home.
Yeah.
So what did they tell you? Like, what were you hearing from your support system at this time?
Um, the boyfriend that I had at the time, which was part of the reason why I was driving so many hours. And there was like one time that I actually snuck him back with me and he like stayed a couple days in the hotel that the Smart Circle people paid for. He's not in my life anymore. I'm married now with the best husband in the world. But this guy, he would get really upset whenever I had to travel.
Yeah.
And I would know that. But I wouldn't tell my the owner and my leader that I don't want to travel because of this, because they would just throw it back in your face like time now for time later and blah 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 blah. And so I couldn't let either one know
Mhm.
completely. Like I couldn't let the leaders know how upset I was about traveling because they would be like, if you don't want to travel, then you don't really want this opportunity or you don't want this job. And really, at this point, like I wasn't super like stoked on the opportunity anymore. I just needed the paycheck. It was like until I could find something else. And but there was no time to look for anything else ever.
Right.
And then I would lie to him and like lie to my mom and my dad about how I was going to be successful and like how it won't be like too much longer, like I'll just have to do this program for a few more months so we just got to like stick it out and like they would be supportive of it. My mom later told me that her and my aunt talked about how they thought it was like a pyramid scheme or like something wasn't right.
Yeah.
um my dad, I don't think he did. My dad was always pretty supportive. Like he spent like a few $100s on suits when I first joined because I didn't have any. Um, he bought me like quite a few suits because like you had to look good and like I don't know. That's never really been my. I've never cared about the clothes or the jewelry or cars or whatever. Like that wasn't what I cared about. I just wanted a good steady paycheck. Um, but yeah, my mom, I guess she sensed something was wrong, but she was too scared to like talk. I think she thought that I was too deep
Yeah.
to kind of like talk to me about it. But no, and I mean, I was lying to all of them.
Hmm.
And near the end, I knew it. Near the end, I was doing bad. My sales were bad. And I thought I was going to get fired, but I stayed until the office closed.
So If your mom or somebody else had brought up their concerns to you at that point, would you have listened, do you think?
Um, Depends on what they showed me. If there was good evidence, something like your videos, if I would have seen your videos when I was in there, I would have been out. I would have been done. Maybe I would have like stuck around like while I knew, collecting a paycheck while I was looking for another job, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have like blindly stayed in as long as I did. Um, or like I don't know because like what proof could my mom have found
Yeah.
online?
It's definitely easier now because of Reddit, especially. Like if you go on Reddit, there every city, every town in America has a subreddit, and that's, I think, a very valuable source of information. Is if you notice, whatever town you're in, if you notice this kind of weird marketing company or sales company and is advertising this opportunity and it seems kind of shady, that's one way to spread the word for sure, is to get it on Reddit because that's searchable. Um, okay, so you said you stayed until the office closed.
Yeah.
So, so what was that conversation like? Did your owner just up and say, that's it, I'm out, and were you given an opportunity elsewhere, or how did that all go down?
Okay, so I'd mentioned that I was afraid I was going to get fired because my
Yeah,
sales are really bad. I completely lost my attitude, like, because they kept sending me on these 12-day road trips and like over like Christmas and New Year's, like during those dates, I was in like Jacksonville, North Carolina. And like I got to go home like on Christmas Day or whatever, but just like spending the holiday season away, and after that, I was just so over it. I didn't want to travel, but I couldn't tell them I didn't want to travel, you know?
yeah.
And my sales were just lacking. Like I was done. And I didn't want to walk up to random people and try and sell them stuff in Sam's Club anymore. I had like completely lost my attitude. And my sales were really suffering. Like I had days that I didn't get a single sale. And um the owner had quite a few like of those little critical conversations with me and my leader, and I would have to do those breakdown calls every night.
Yeah.
Like, and there's kind of like, we have to turn it around, we have to turn it around, da da da. And like the last week or the last like rotation, which I think that now this is like really messed up because they told me the last rotation that that office was in business, they said, okay, this is your chance. Like, this is your rotation. Like, you have to like turn it around here, or like we're gonna have to like let you go. And I was like, okay. And I didn't even try. I think like in my mind like that much. I was just like, uh, let me go. Like
Yeah.
how I found out that they closed the office. So I got sick. I actually called out for like my first time over like the year that I spent there. I got really sick at the end, probably because they were working me to death.
Mhm.
And I had to go to the doctor, and somebody had to cover the like last like the Friday, Saturday, and then like the tear down on Sunday
Yeah.
for me. Apparently, whenever everybody went back on that Sunday after tear down, the owner announced that they closed the office and that there wasn't going to be a next rotation. Didn't tell their guys ahead of time. Because she wanted everybody's help to bring all the stuff back, and they counted all the inventory and like they did all the extra stuff. Probably the only people that knew were like the owner, maybe the admin, and then like the highest leader in the office.
Mhm.
Wasn't even an assistant manager, even though she really deserved to be. But those are the only people that knew. So like I called on either like Sunday night or Monday. I called the owner and I was like, hey, I know my sales were trash. Um, let me get like 2 more weeks. Cause I was like, crap, how am I going to pay rent? You know? And
Mhm.
I was like, let me get 2 more weeks. And like in my mind, I'm like, if I can get another week or two and I can really like keep trying to find another job, this will give me like the time to pay my rent. And she was like, oh, like, I would let you like stay on for another like week or two, but like we closed the office. She was like, I didn't want to like call you and tell you while you were sick, but we closed the office. And I was like, what? And then like, yeah, I had found out that like they announced it after teardown. Like, I guess she did that so all her people didn't quit on her while they
Yeah.
were still running events. But like thinking back on it, how messed up is it to tell somebody, oh, if you try really hard on this rotation, like your job will be safe when you know you're closing the office in 2 weeks. Like,
Wow.
what if I would have given it my all and like killed it in sales and been like, all right, I really can do this. And then they were like, no, no, you can't because we're closed. Her reasoning for closing her office was to go back to Myrtle Beach with her husband because she was
Mhm.
married and he lived in Myrtle Beach, or not Myrtle Beach, Virginia Beach.
Mhm.
He lived in Virginia Beach, which I always thought was like super weird. And like it also kind of like made it so I couldn't bring up my concerns about not being able to spend time with my loved ones because she would just be like, oh, well, my husband is all the way in Virginia Beach and like I'm making this work for this business because blah blah blah. Like
Right.
so anything that I had to say was like nothing in comparison
Right.
to her being that far away.
Right.
Um and so her reasoning for closing was that she like hit her goals or like something like that and like she wanted to um be back closer to her husband. And
Yeah.
so
The translation is the intense weight of the mental pressure she put on herself because of that separation finally crushed her soul enough to the extent that she finally made the decision, I'm done. And
yeah.
kudos based on that.
Or they closed our office because
Yeah.
like the sales weren't great. Maybe that's why I was getting so much pressure.
Yeah, I think what you experienced is something that almost everybody experiences. Like you get a point, you either are fired for something, whether it's just really bad performance or um,
Compliance.
some compliance. Thank you. Or you hit a wall, and I think the vast majority of people do. Like you could be a successful leader for a few months, but then it's just mentally taxing, all the stuff that they put you through. Because even if you weren't doing all the different solo road trips and everything, you'd still have, the insane hours, 7 to 7, if not 7 to later, team nights, breaking down your day every single day, coming up with goals every single week. And eventually it's just like you're just trapped in this circle, this autopilot where you can't think for yourself. You don't have time to take care of yourself. You don't have time to see anybody else except in this business. Your relationships suffer or terminate. And yeah, eventually I think it just all adds up to the extent where, well, you, as successful as you may have been before, at this point, like you said, I don't care. I'm done. I'm literally just collecting a paycheck because I need it. But
Yep.
I think a lot of people too reach a point where they start looking for jobs. They're there just collecting the paycheck as they look for other jobs because they just can't take it anymore. And I think most people experience that at one point or another.
We could talk about them trying to cover up sexual harassment from the Sam's Club manager.
Yeah, I think we should definitely talk about that, please.
So, in one of the Sam's Clubs that I was working at, there was I think it was the night manager, and like for a while he would just kind of like look at me and I was like,
Yeah.
whatever. And then one day when I got there to like start a rotation, it was after close, or maybe it was tear down. It was either set up or tear down. But all I know is I had the big pallets of like all the displays out at night by my car. Um, and the parking lot was empty and there was nobody else there. And he like would come, he came out to the car and like relentlessly cornered me and like hit on me. And I was so uncomfortable. There was like nobody around. And so I told the owner, I was like, hey, this guy just did this. He's the manager at this Sam's Club. Like, I don't feel comfortable at all. And so she like called me in and basically like what she said in a nutshell was like she didn't want to mess up her relationship with Sam's Club over this. And that I don't even think that she told them what like their manager was doing. And so she basically um said like, hey, we won't put you in this club anymore. And I was like, okay, like I guess that's fine. And then a couple months down the road, she was like, oh, we need somebody to work this club. Like, I know you said you didn't want to work this club anymore, but like basically like if you want a job, you have to work this club. So I would go into the club and my sales were crap because this guy would make excuses to walk past my booth and like look at me, and then I would call my leader and be really upset about it. And I was like, look, I've told him I'm not interested. I've told him to stop, and he won't. And they just covered it up. They didn't want to tell anybody about it. And then they like went back on their word and said, we promise we won't put you in that store anymore. And then they did. They like framed it in the way that I wouldn't be making any money if I didn't do it, which is really messed up. And then shaming me for not making good sales when I have Mr. making me uncomfortable walking past my booth 50 times a day.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry you had to experience that. And the worst part is, your owner is a female, number one. So you'd think there'd be some kind of empathy there because you know that she has experienced probably something like that in her life.
Yeah.
And to frame it as, we said, or you had said you didn't want to work in that Sam's Club. No, that's not at all what you said. Their solution to this problem was, oh, you'll never have to work there. We're not going to hold this guy accountable because who knows how many other women this guy's done this to. We're just gonna roll under the rug. We'll move you to another club. It's okay. Like you said, her main priority was not to ruin the relationship with Sam's Club. Just like during the hurricane, her main priority was to get the display. That I think that is the perfect example of the window into the world of the smart circle owner, is that they do not care about you. They do not care about your safety. They do not care about your humanity. They do not care about anything about you as long as you are making them money and not losing them money. And it's kind of surprising that maybe she knew like a month or so in advance that she was going to close. So she just thought, well, hell, I'll just keep you on the payroll anyway, because it really makes no sense for her to do so if you're not making them money. So that's really pathetic from her standpoint as well, that she did nothing else.
Yeah, and like when they called me into the office to like talk about it, it was like me and my leader and her.
Mm-hmm.
And they would always like anytime like something would happen like that, they would frame it as like this training opportunity. Like the first time that I had to fire somebody on my team, she got all excited
Yeah.
about it. Oh, it's an opportunity for you to learn how to fire people. And I'm like, I don't want to fire this guy. Like, this guy just isn't good at sales and it sucks. But like, don't be excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I mean, it was really, really uncomfortable, especially like it's the middle of the night. Sam's Club is closed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm by myself out here, and this guy's like coming up to my car. No. And he won't like leave me alone, and I can't just leave because I've got this pallet of your product on it. Like,
Yeah.
our things started slipping on Glassdoor. People started like calling it a scam and leaving all these negative reviews. And the owner came in and she had all her leaders write 5-star reviews for it.
Of course.
So I screenshotted mine. Super untruthful. And she was like, yeah, like, don't say that there's no cons because people will know that that's like somebody who like works there and is happy with it or something.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you have to like write it a con that's really like a positive that as a con.
Yeah.
It was just like a voice recording that I sent Liz Davis for the hair stuff.
Yeah.
I was listening over it and I was like, this doesn't sound like my voice at all. And it was scary because the like inflections I was putting on it and everything, I sounded like her.
Yeah.
Like I sounded like every other girl in that business that pitched it over and over and over again. Like
Yeah.
it was terrifying. I was like, this isn't me.
All you really need to know is that it's much healthier for the hair and much faster. Now, the other thing we brought from Jose's salon, the hot brush. These ones, they'll do 4 things for their hair. They're going to straighten, curl, volumize, dry the hair, so they can use it right out of the shower in wet hair. Now, do you ever smell like burning hair when they're doing their hair in the bathroom? Yeah? These, since they're completely damage free, you'd never have to smell that again. Yeah, pretty great, right?
Yeah.
But you know who Jose Aver is, right? This guy?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. He's been famous for decades for doing all the celebrities' hair, like Cher, even Beyonce.
Yeah.
But at his Beverly Hills salon, The Iron, it goes for $130, which is, well, it's pretty typical for the quality, right? And right now for members, we dropped it down to 79 bucks. The kicker is, we're throwing in a second item completely on the house. So you get 2 for under the price of 1. Yeah, and that's why my last guy, he did a set for his daughter and one for his wife. He wanted to surprise them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You lose your individual identity, yeah. Because I noticed the same thing. When I was in there, I developed a way of speaking, nonverbals, like different gestures that I never did before. It was almost like you became someone else. You're right. It is frightening.
And I had an idea. Are there any petitions out there to get Sam's Club and Costco and these big businesses to stop working with Smart Circle Company?
There might be. I do not know. That would be something to look into. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because that could put a dent in them anyway.
Yeah.
If they go back to doing like door-to-door sales or like whatever, they'll probably have a lot harder time recruiting people.
Yeah.